I figure we'll keep it really loose. I'm excited to see everybody here. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Willie, for having me. Um, Without moving further, one thing we always do in my family is we always honor our elders. You know, it's like just showing respect. And there is a gentleman here whom I met when, well, I should say, he met me when I was going to school with his son in about fourth grade. And any of you who may remember, COSI, what it was like, what was it, downtown or something?
Yeah, Bronx.
Yeah, right. So there was a space, and they had like a, band set up, and it was like plastic instruments. Well, anyway, I get on the drums, and I'm just like toying around, and they had audio music playing with these fake instruments. And someone walked up to me after we got back to the school on the field trip, and he said, "You're a drummer. You're a drummer." And I'm thinking, this cat has no idea that that was pre-recorded music. But no, he knew what he was looking at. He knew what he was saying when I jumped on those plastic drums. And he's here today. And his name at the time, I did not know who he was. But as I've grown in this city, I definitely know who he is. And I would love for you guys to make a whole lot of noise for Mr. Joe Ong, who is a masterful musician. Masterful musician. So he's got me nervous up here, man. What can I say? What can I say? So I told Will I would keep it really, like, again, real loose, laid back, and I have a couple of concepts that I guess I could speak about a little bit, and then we'll go from there. I would say at any point in time, if you guys have any questions, we'll just jump in and I'll share some music and move from there. One thing I would say about Amazing Grace or music period, but I try to display it within Amazing Grace, is being conscious of melody. As drummers, I think it's one thing that can really elevate whatever level we are at. It's my firm belief that music is practically like three components at its core, right? You got melody, you got the harmony, you got rhythm. So we are already engaged with sort of lording the rhythm. And I think that next component we could jump right into with relative ease is understanding melody. So what I try to do when I practice is like pick something that I know that I'm very familiar with and sing and play, no matter what it is. It can be something that I make up, and I try to keep that in the forefront of my musicianship at all times. So let's just say somebody say a word. I don't know. Any word, doesn't matter.
Baseball.
Baseball. Okay. Baseball. All right. So let's say if I'm gonna play a song and it's called Baseball, and you got melody and you're usually take your word.
We've exhausted my knowledge.
Baseball. All right. Baseball. Everybody say that. Baseball. That's the melody. Baseball. Let me hear you say it.
Baseball.
Let me hear you say it.
Baseball.
Let me hear you say it.
Baseball.
You guys keep playing the melody. Baseball. And here I go. So like all I did was really thank you for that beautiful melody and subject. All I really did is think about that melody, and I tried to make it the dominant force behind the rhythm that I was playing. Does anyone know where I was playing that particular rhythm? Anybody? I'm gonna play the groove again. Now remember the melody in your head. I'm not gonna sing it this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so just by centering that melody in my mind, I found a place to make it make sense inside the music. Does that make sense? Make sense? Yeah. So like paying attention to that is really important for me because for one, that's like the music's sort of individual value, right? So like what makes it what it is dominantly the melody. And I wouldn't say more than anything else, but that's like, my name is Cedric Easton, and I have two brothers. So there are multiple Eastons, but there's like one Cedric. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how a melody is to me. It gives me that identity. Right on? Cool. I'm going to jump into one more song here. Let's see. This is pre-recorded. If it's too loud for you, we do have plugs out there.
That's
so
true.
You have to pass it around.
Anybody need earplugs?
I guess we'll see after this.
Okay.
45 years so far. What?
Wow. Let's see, we'll do this. Pass it down. Whoever wants to grab some, go for it. Just go ahead and slide it back.
I forgot to say something. So to me, these are 5 components that make or can help round out a drummer's playing, right? So that first component, I would say, is individual expression, and understanding like that melody, which is the identity of the music that you're playing, and understanding that you have an individual contribution that you add to the music as well, no matter what position you play. And that's really important for us because oftentimes, as they call us like timekeepers, right? Have you ever heard this term before? Like the drummer is a timekeeper, and it's like, yeah, maybe. Fundamentally, I understand what you're saying, but everyone in the band are music makers, and some people have a little bit more dominant roles in that. And again, it's all even across the board. So understanding like that individuality, like your role is pretty critical. So I would say that's number one. Number two, I would say collective effort, right? So after you are clear about who you are, then you can contribute to the band in a way. And that song is an original song from a collection of songs that I'm putting out this year. Plug the shameless guy. And it's called Go, and it's based on like experiences living in New York. And that groove it's really, I took it from a great band. Talk about collective effort, the Ahmad Jamal Trio. If you ever get a chance, wonderful band. And the drummer on that album, I believe, is Vernell Fournier, which is just beautiful. And he really kind of lays into this groove the whole song. Like, right? Like that's like the foundation of what he's doing. And what's really hip is if you listen to that, which you should check it out, Ahmad Jamal Trio. As the band develops and keeps growing as a unit collectively, he stays in that pocket like the duration of the journey. And that really speaks volumes. We know this from other, masterful songs we may know if you think of Superstition, or if there's so many grooves you could think of where it's fundamentally static, but it keeps moving the entire time. So I would say that second component of having a collective contribution is really important. That was a nice drum groove too. So I think sometimes I don't think we understand, it took me a long time to understand how powerful the collective effort is, even from the drums alone, right? So we're talking about this a little earlier, right? You have that dynamic where if you think about how drums hit this landmass, kind of like before the drum set, you had a cat playing this, you had another cat playing these, and then you had someone else, doing this thing, whatever, right? Not whatever, that's masterful. But there were individuals playing the instruments. And something I noticed with at least with myself and even with younger students, when we first start off, we're not always in sync with ourselves. And I think we have to remember, one, that is perfectly fine and okay. So if I can try, I remember when I first started playing the drums, I couldn't reach the hi-hat. And it would sound something probably like this. I don't know if I can do it very well right now. But it was discombobulated, man. It was like the bass drum was over here and the snare was over here. That collective sort of music making has to start with us because we're playing 3 different instruments, like as soon as you start playing the drums. And if you can think of how to bring those 3 things together, it will help your drumming, no matter how simple you start, So if you think, okay, no matter what, if I'm right here with 4 on the floor, I'm going to start there. So whenever I play on the snare drum, I'm going to think of how does it come together collectively with the kick drum. Then I'm going to stop because I'm going to be like really happy on the inside. It worked, right? Well, we have one more component to go, right? You have your kick drum. Okay? And you know it comes together because I can see out of my peripheral, man, this whole amen corner over here, the head, which is like, yeah, you know?
Swing it.
So in the same way that we sort of have to bring our instrument together as one, that's how you think about it when you're playing music. You know, listen, find the constant that you can lock into, and then just try to build from there, no matter what it is, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Quick bunch.
Can I toss a little
Yes.
comment? So you ever notice how the beat you just played, 9 times out of 10, it's the very first drum beat you ever play, right? And you're kind of like, this is easy. But later down the road, you don't realize how sweet that first beat is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How often do we use that beat as drummers?
All the time. I mean, I just mentioned the song Superstition. Okay, so I just played this for you guys. Right? That's that first beat. Well, Superstition is a little faster and a slight variation on the hi-hat. You know, and that starts the song off. It's just amazing. It's really beautiful. Yeah. So we have our first piece is your individual belonging, and then your collective engagement. Let's jump into another song here. Let's go with. Let me see here. What am I thinking? I got my notes going on. Okay, let's do this. If I don't make it through this, blame Mr. Ong over here. So let me tell you what I'm laughing about with that. So when we recorded these songs on the album that's coming out this year, 2022, plug the shameless kind. We intentionally decided not to use a metronome because we kind of wanted that, more or less human, or as we say, organic feel. So playing at that tempo without a metronome that I could hear in my ear was like, made me nervous. But when I think about like that song, it's a couple different kind of rhythmic patterns that are happening inside, and I think that third, I guess, component that helps make a complete or sound drummer is understanding rhythmic variation, right? Because there are a lot of songs, particularly now, where you have to, you have to kind of know a lot of different rhythms because like a lot of the music is hybrid, right? So like I'm trying to think of something. If you play something like, I don't know why Dancing Queen is like in my brain right now. Oh my God!
Don't fight that feeling.
Don't fight the feeling, man. It's not it's like it's kind of in my from my understanding, you kind of have like a pretty strong funk kick happening, but then you got this disco thing going on with the high, but it's not 100%, it's somewhere in between. So I think like all of the music that's happening right now that you play, no matter what level, you're going to have to think about, that variation that's happening within particular grooves or within the sections of the song. So let's kind of break this down, if I may. This is a song called Fred Fought Back, which is like a song I dedicated to Frederick Douglass, which I got to tell you this because I think it's really hip. So Frederick Douglass actually became a writer, and he helped, liberate slaves at a particular time. Before he did that, in his book, it says that he decided like he was never going to get abused again. Like at some point, he was like, they're going to kill me because I'm going to fight back to the death, right? And he didn't get killed. And it also says in his book that like after that day, he wasn't like he had not escaped or he wasn't free after that, but he never received that kind of punishment again, just because he stood up for himself, So that song to me really like speaks to like courage against adversity, even to a point that you think like you may not be able to do it. And I would say that goes on any level, even if it's like playing Dancing Queen. If you feel like you can't do it, it's like you gotta just like commit yourself in your mind and your will to say, I'm gonna, work this out. But it's when I was thinking about the song, writing that song, I was trying to figure out how to create something that sort of had that liberated feeling harmonically, but was also a nod to the culture to me that came out of that, right? So if you listen to it, it's like you could easily play like Talib Kweli or J Dill, So I was trying to think of that thing, but I didn't want to give it away like that, right? I didn't want to just start the song and be like, here it is. So I decided to really like space it out and try to play with the melody. So with that same feeling. So it's like So even though I'm playing on the downbeats here, I know that it's going to go into that next section, which is swinging. So having that variation in mind, I'm trying to think about how can I make it feel, how can I make this and this be implied here. All before the solo section. And to answer your question, to answer my own question, I don't know. And I don't even know if I achieved it. But there was an attempt because I was courageous. Like
did you have that rhythm then already planted before you gave it away? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's already planted. And you just
that's a great question because I tried a couple of different things. I started off doing what we all do probably, and it's like too much, right? So at first, I think the first time I ever tried to play it, it was like I was playing like a. But like
What was wrong with that again?
Well, I mean, sometimes live, with the band, I may go into that, but like, I felt like it took away from the melody. I felt like, it was so much going on, and so I was trying to think of like, how could I get out of the way? And then for a while, I was playing it like, I didn't like this at all, but I was playing it like, it was like. And I was just like, first of all, that sounds like lunchtime or something. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't into it. And eventually I just kept trying to scale it back, and I was like, let me imply what I'm feeling. So it's almost like Miles Davis said that silence is the most powerful sound. So I'm like, how can I implement that feel and then let the rhythm section and that melody help create that momentum as well. And that's kind of what drew me to. So I think for us, like, having that kind of awareness, I told you I have two brothers and I'm a middle child, right? So like, it's like getting the backseat of the Cavalier, man. It might not always, it's never my first pick as a place to sit, but it might be what works best for that particular journey. And I think as drummers, if we're aware, of that variation, how to be confident that it's happening some way, those polyrhythms are happening in the music, and not have to play them. Does that make sense? I don't know. So like just being like really aware of like that rhythmic variation. I'm gonna play some more music. Unless anybody had a question. Everybody's cool. You guys dig this?
Loving it.
All right.
Good stuff, man.
Ooh. Let's just play this song.
Tell me where I can go to find the space, fresh breath and life, the search. Show me where I can be. Let my bones, my skin observe the light that shines. Wandering I go about where to find rest. Oh, how long does my heart cry?
Thank you. That song's called Jacob's Trouble. And sorry, that song kind of messes with me a bit. To me, that really speaks to our dynamics, right? That fourth component of being sort of a complete musician from the drum set is being able to sort of command, control, and it's not, I think of the sound of the drums. And by sound, I don't mean velocity. I mean there's like an overarching sound of the instrument, and it's how do you maneuver that, you know? Again, it's a collective instrument, so it's not like, you know, more kick drum, boom, you know. It doesn't really work like that. It's more or less what is the music saying, and how do I move the dynamics of the drums throughout that. So let's just say, you guys read music? Everybody read music in here? All right, cool. So like, okay, if you're checking out, okay, in music there's different dynamics. If it says piano, right, it's soft, all right? So like, I think with good dynamics, you could just like land a cymbal at a place that says piano, depending on the music, right? Because the dynamic of the music can call for that to happen, you know, and we have to have that kind of control where we're able to do that and keep moving and speak the language that's happening around us, if that makes sense. You know, and it doesn't all have to be improvisatory or very open in that way. This can happen with anything, with any language or genre, as we call it, of music. You know, kind of figuring it out. One guy who just came to my mind, if you have a chance, told you to check out Vernell Fournier, which is the Majamal Trio. James Gatson, if you check out a recording, Bill Withers live at Carnegie Hall, right? So like, here's what's really hip about this. For one, James Gatson is just hip. For two, his dynamic control is insane. It's quite fantastic. And one, I already thought it was pretty beautiful sonically, you know, because following an acoustic guitar is not the easiest thing to do. Bill Withers plays a lot of rhythm. You know, he's really dominating that. But when you can look this up on YouTube and you watch the concert, and you see James Gatson, man, like, I mean, the stick is coming like this far off the drum. I don't know why he's getting that kind of sound. It just like barely raising this. I can't do it. Like, you know, he's barely taking his stick off the drum. You know, and he's really got great dynamic control. So quick review. Can anybody tell us the first thing that's really important for us to think about?
Individuality.
Yes. 2.
Say it
Yeah,
louder.
you're there.
Like the collective.
Yes, the collective effort. All right, what's the third thing?
Well, we just talked about dynamics, right?
That was 4th.
No.
What's the third component? Uh-oh, I see curious eyes. Is there a question mark in your eyes? Like, nope, not anymore. Anyone remember? Understanding variation, understanding the different rhythmic variation, the language that you're playing. Even if you decide to mix it up, or if you decide to keep it pretty strict, you know, understand it. All right, so we're gonna go to that. We're gonna play one more song, maybe here. It's like a last spice of life for stick handlers. Let's see. Watch your ear. This one is electric, so I'm just saying. Watch your ears. give credit where it's due. That last little teeny tiny bit was once again a nod to Mr. Joe Ong, because the first groove I knew had a name was taught to me at Monroe Middle School, and there was a group that came to the school called the American Jazz Experience, and he taught the groove Charleston. You know, I'm not going to embarrass myself and play it wrong, but that was a nod to you. I just really wonder. I know there's a lot of students in here, and I've been there, so I know where it's. You know, you can be a little nervous. But do you have any question at all? And there's a lot of help in here. If I don't know the answer, you know, do you all have any questions? Yes. What's up, man?
About dynamics. Specifically, something I've been thinking about a lot recently is your own dynamics versus like the band dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when a lot of people get in the same room in the same band, and they might be loud players naturally.
Yeah.
The group soft or piano is like everyone's medium to loud, and like it's really hard to balance from there. So how do you balance that?
So I think the question I'm hearing is, how do you balance your place in all of that, or
or even navigate like how you help the group make group dynamic changes. Because if you're trying to be piano and the bass player's just ignoring you and they're playing loud or something,
But eventually they'll bring it down.
Hopefully.
If you stay where you are. I mean,
no, I
If
agree.
you got enough sticks to throw at them,
well,
that's
no,
for sure.
I mean, when you play in those dynamics, if you stay where you are, matter of fact, this is gonna sound crazy, go quieter.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're gonna go, "What's he doing?" They've got to go quiet. I mean, they've either got to bring it down or it falls apart.
It's the old, if someone's yelling at you, you talk soft.
That's it.
Absolutely.
It really is. It really works.
It brings them down.
And I think too, like something to kind of consider is like we kind of, you know, I think we live in a loud world, right? And I don't mean that philosophically. I mean like it's just loud everywhere, you know, and it's getting louder. And the way that we listen to music, you know, a lot of people have their pods in, and so it's. I think you have to be conscious of who you're playing with and where you're playing, and sometimes you can have that conversation beforehand. You know, if you know your band is going to get above 120 decibels or whatever, if you know your band plays loud, you can talk to your cats before the gig, like, yo, we're loud. I mean, you got to find the right way to say that, but you can have that conversation.
Sometimes there's no better way to say it.
Yeah,
Sometimes
you know,
directed, it works.
but also saying we are loud helps, you know. And I agree with you. Sometimes I think there's a way to get a person's attention, just like in a conversation. You know, you like say if you're playing, I don't know, man. Like and the cat is playing like significantly louder than you, and you said, what if the person's not paying attention? You can get their attention. You play drums. You know what I mean? So, you know. I mean, there is a way. If you do something abrupt playing drums, like everybody knows, like, you know, it sort of calls to attention. Actually, drums all around the world, and not just drum set. I mean, they're called to, like, you know, grab folks' attention, to galvanize, you know, say, hey, everybody, we're marching this away, or, you know, where the beat drop, whatever, like, that's, everybody starts dancing, like, right there, you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of ways, but communication, whether, like, sonically with your instrument or just a conversation, I think helps with that.
Just a conceptual thing I'm thinking about.
For sure.
I also had a question about your brushes, but I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I noticed that when you brought your right, it's a really small thing, and I'm just curious because I only know a couple of brush techniques myself. I just do like a figure eight, but your right hand kind of goes over. I noticed.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I think I saw your left hand do the same, and I was like, I've never thought about it this way. I've always thought about it flat-wise. Drum hand's flat, but
no, for sure. So, great question. First of all, this head is for something different. I would generally play brushes on like a fiber skin head or something, you know. And it was just fighting me a little bit when I was like, oh gosh, yeah, it's very gritty, you know. It sounds good for what it sounds good for, you know. So I think first thing is like equipment is a big part of what we do, and understanding like what gig you're playing. So th- I don't care how, like that's really important. You know, the other thing I would say, so your head is really important. Like what you're using, what gear you're using. With brushwork, for me, man, I think everything counts. So, like, obviously, or maybe not obviously, Ed Thigpen is a wonderful person to check out. It's the stuff is on YouTube because a lot of different combinations. I think, you know, if you can get this guy's attention, he's got some really good brushwork. Mr. Joe Ong, phenomenal brushwork. I think one thing I noticed, like at jam sessions, I think I may have met you at the jam session. I watch a lot of drummers play, and they play like the strokes don't count. So in my mind, all the strokes count with brushes because it's all sound. So as soon as I put the brush down, like no matter, to me that's a part of the music. So I used to have a couple consistent patterns to go to, but then I started trying to change them. You know, I started playing figure eights, like all kind of different things, and I found that I could get different subdivisions thinking like that versus like, you know, okay, I'm going to go this direction and do this thing. So I would say, like, be attentive to all of the sound because all of the sound is music. So if I pull the brushes out and I just, if I, you know, all of it counts. was that good music or not? You know, and I think that way. So when I'm moving, I don't like pigeonhole myself into, I have to do this thing or I have to go a certain way. I might hear something by accident coming back, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that again, you know, just because I heard it. So I think maybe like always keeping your mind open to what you hear and then like explore it even if you don't know what it is.
I realized I had a weakness in it when like my old brushes broke, and I had those for years, and I get new ones, and I was like, this is not the same. Like, what happened? I had to buy 2 more pairs to find one that was like working for me, and then I was like, I got to restart. And oddly enough, at that jam session, I played like a ballad brush tune after you, and I'm just now realizing it.
No, I mean it didn't sound bad to me, but yeah, no. You have to get to know your instrument, man. You know, you could just like, you know, when you go to sleep, cuddle up to your new brushes, like, hey man, you know, yeah, but just play. I think for me, especially like if I put new heads on the drums or if I get new, I actually just started using these sticks like a month ago. I tried them randomly, and then I bought them. They're like 5 B-sides, which I generally would not mess with, but they're maple, so they're super light 5B, and then the diameter helps me use less. Anyway, I don't want to get into that whole thing. But what I did was I bought like 4 pair immediately and got rid of. I just took all the sticks out of my bag that I would use, so I couldn't default to those sticks. It like forced myself to have to use these, you know. So I think. Anytime you get something new, equipment-wise, man, like lay into it, you know. Mm-hmm.
Well, going off of making new sounds, maybe it was like 2 songs ago when you dragged the head of the stick across the cymbal. I had never heard that sound before, and I think that we were talking about this earlier in the week. You have, you know, these are our tools, and if you just play, you know, the same cadence, well, not cadence, but like the same. Yeah, well, more so like the same energy in each hit, right? The same amount of power. That's a little bit better. It can come really flat. So, as you said earlier, silence is really important. So is variation in how we're hitting, where we're hitting, and with what we're hitting with. I mean, even in that first one you did with your hand technique, I mean, it's just hands, but how many different sounds were you able to create on just one drum hit with just your hands? So I think all of that ties in. You know, our hands are our tools, our sticks are our tools, brushes are tools, and each of the heads, you know, as we said, you know, you can play the head or you can play the side of the instrument, and it all creates individual sounds, and that's what makes it music, yeah?
Absolutely. And I believe in that, like, the exploration.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a drummer once, man, and he had, like dots. It was just like a little marker, you know, he had, like, these dots. What the heck is going on, right? And so I'm watching the gig, and at some point he's playing like this. At other points he's playing. I mean, it was like really interesting to just observe. and I'm like, this guy is really, he's crafting sound, but out of one cymbal, you know, and that really spoke to me. Like okay, it was Brian Blade, by the way, and who's a phenomenal musician, and like to see it from the other side, and I want to talk about this, seeing it from the other side, like. One, it made me think like, how many sounds can I get from like the stick and the metal, like the cymbal, you know? You have your tip, you have the shaft, you have all these different ways. You can flip it over to the butt end, figuring out where the different sounds are. And then each cymbal has its own character, and finding out where the different sounds are within your cymbal. You know, obviously this is a different sound than this, but there are sounds in between. More wash, more stick, you hear that tone difference? You know, so really explore that kind of stuff. And I will also say, as many times as possible when you're listening to live music, even for a song, get in this position where you can see what the person is doing, right? So with Mr. Blade, it was like I could see what was happening versus if I were on the other side, I may have just, his cymbals, first of all, they're very large, but like I may not have seen what he was doing with his stick to make me wonder like, what? And I didn't ask. I didn't even know him. I don't know him. You know what I mean? But I was just like, I was close enough to watch it. So I guess two things from that, like really explore. And don't be afraid to explore. You know, like no matter what level you're in, you can literally take, you know, hey, I'm going to take 5 minutes of every practice day and just like find stuff. You know, what does this sound like? Oh, that's different. You know, how can I use, what does it sound like to hit the metal? You know, what you know, like really just find stuff. You know, and like don't be afraid of it. You know,
I think that's a huge part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very like it's really transparent with the energy, the emotion that you're trying to put out. That's what's going into each stick hit.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you're more melancholy one day, if you're playing the same tune, if you're more melancholy, that's really going to sound differently than if you're like, I just got a promotion, you know, I'm living my best life. It's the same notes, it's the same hits, but you know, just being vulnerable with the instrument. And if you hit something, it's like, ooh, that's a bad sound. You know, never say, oh, I'm never going to do that again, because you might be able to incorporate it somewhere else. Yeah,
absolutely, I agree.
At the level that I play, it's amazing how many people or musicians that I've met that don't recognize this as an instrument.
Oh yeah,
you're just a drummer.
Yeah, for sure.
You're just hitting stuff, and it goes back to that timekeeping mindset, right? That's your job. Just keep time, man. Meter. Don't have a speed. You stick in the pocket and hit those things. It's like, but this is an instrument. It's got to be tuned. It's got to be. You've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a number of instruments.
It's absolutely. Yeah, collectively. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it's frustrating if you've done it for a long time to hear them say, you know, just hit that. This is an instrument.
Every time when they want.
Or you're back there tuning it up, and they're like,
for sure, no, for sure.
What are you back there tapping? Yeah, I'm tuning you tune your guitar the whole damn show.
Yeah, can I use your
Definitely. And also too, it's like really important, especially like the cats coming up, like it's really important to put yourself in a community of drummers, right? Because whether that's a blog or whether you find jam sessions where people are, like what I find, drummers are like super duper cool. I don't know about any, I do talk to other musicians, but I'll just say for sure, drummers are 9 out of 10 times, whether they're playing for someone like Sting or with someone like Bobby Floyd or it doesn't matter who, they're normally really, really cool. You know, especially if they find out that you are a drummer. So I would say, like, try to find ways to surround yourself with people who are dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with and going through the same thing you're going through, you know, because it never stops. And there is, how can I say this? Sometimes each instrument or instrumentalist doesn't receive the same level of like consideration and empathy and compassion. I think it's what you're talking about, and not in every case, but the way we have treated drums over the drum set over time, in some ways has diminished its value, and it's not new. I mean, when you walked in, they call you Mr. Ong. Okay, what Will was playing when you walked in is like Max Roach, right? And so he had this like percussion band that was like, you know, but when he was already a signed artist, well established, very, very popular, and boom, yep. And when he took this project to the record label, they were just like, no, sir. Like, where, like, who's going to listen to that? So I think, but they kept going, and obviously they made some really awesome music. So this is one of the most glorious things I have found that I can do in my life, playing drums. So I don't want to speak too negatively about it. I just want to give you the reality that sometimes you'll be in bands with people who don't have the same consideration and compassion and empathy for this instrument as they may for a harmonic instrument. And that's okay. Like, I have my theory about that because this is the youngest, so you may tend to think that this is less superior to like piano or something like that, but it's like, and I'm talking about this being the drum set, not the drum, because you could really get them on that. Like, you talk about the drum, yes, but the drum set. So I feel like in a lot of ways it's happening all the time, but we're still, we got that baby brother status, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so just be mindful of that. Don't let it discourage you. Anyone else?
Yeah, fight through that adversity. We gotta be more humble than the lead guitarist, right?
I didn't say any instruments. I got a lot of friends. I don't know who's paying attention to this. Is this being live streamed?
Crazy. You look like a young Todd Superman.
Oh yeah.
Hanging out with Todd, I'm like, this kid is like Todd, like when he was like in high school.
I can see that.
A little bit older than high school, but I'll take the compliment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, compared to Todd, I mean,
who is a very bad cat, by the way.
Oh yeah, he is.
Oh man. Yeah, definitely. I wonder, are you guys okay over here?
Yeah.
Feeling good?
I got a question.
Yes.
So, this is kind of like a musicianship kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with not nailing the audition?
Ooh.
Like when you try your hardest, you're working really hard, you're trying to get that gig, but it just falls through. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think you embrace.
Dark, sorry.
No, it's not. No, that's not dark. That's like a.
Exactly. Yeah.
Listen, man. There's a level. No, it's important, and all transparency. Like, let's be clear. Most of us are less than 50% in our endeavors, right? Like, I love basketball. Michael Jordan's percentage, if you happen to think he is the GOAT, as I do, his shooting. I knew it was in the room. I could feel it. But like, missed more shots than were made. Like, you have to deal with that. So I think one thing I say all the time to myself and also students, it's like, you have to be patient with yourself in your process. Like, it's okay, and I mean embrace all of it. Say if you audition for this band and that is like your creme de la creme, like that is the band that's for me, right? And you don't get the gig, I think, man, embrace that feeling. Like, sulk for a day or something. Go to Grader's, get some ice cream. I don't know, like whatever helps that's not harmful. Embrace, like, okay, I did not get the outcome that I wanted, right? And then take that and decide what you're going to do about it, But don't like, I shouldn't say don't, but if you can, try not to make it about something beyond yourself that you cannot control, and be thoughtful too, because some auditions, man, like, it has nothing to do with how you played. It could be other things, Sure, you could, yeah, if you walk in with the wrong hat or something. If I go to play for a polka band right now today, as soon as I walk in, man, I better be really mean with that music, because like, I'm already counted out. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's a lot of dynamics when it comes to something like that. But I say, embrace the process, and if you can, just kind of like use it to become stronger at the thing that you want to do. But if nothing else, keep going. I find with this instrument, man, it gets better over time. Like, it is crazy. I think at this particular time, like, I'll see a lot of guys who can really get around the drum set. And I remember being so focused. Like, I was, I still am a huge like Billy Cobham fan, and which inevitably makes you a Dennis Chambers fan, I think. And there was a point in my life where like that I was like, that's the pinnacle, right? And you're really influential with this because it wasn't until I got to high school and you were like, man, come over, man, like da da da. This kept talking about James Brown. I knew James Brown as a entity, as a character, but it was this funk drummers tape you used to have, and there was 2 drummers, man.
He still got it.
And like, mind you, I'm trying to figure out how to play as fast and hard hitting and double bass as I personally can, right? And all of a sudden, I hear this like, you know, I don't know, you know, stuff like that, or just straight stuff that I would hear Clyde playing. And it's like, what? You know what I mean? Like it moved me, but it was confusing. I didn't know why it moved me because he might at best might, you know what I mean? Like that's, you know, but it moved me. So you know, I forgot why I got into that, but
You talk about not making
James Brown is the takeaway.
Mark Schulman actually wrote a book about that very thing, and he had already achieved. I mean, he was playing with national acts, and Journey called him. He went, he auditioned, and he's like, "I got this." And he walked in, and it went miserably. And Jonathan Cain said, "You're not the guy." And he went back and he regrouped, and he said, "Listen, I'm never going to feel this feeling again." Wrote a book about it, and I mean, you know, from that point on, he said, "I will always be prepared for every audition I go to. I'm going to work my butt off." So, I mean, that can motivate you as well.
No, for sure.
Feeling that feeling.
I think that's what I was talking about, like being persistent, like staying at it, and because the more you do something, honestly, the better you get at it. Even if you don't get faster, you might just get stronger, like conceptually. You know what I mean? So I think like that kind of stick-to-itiveness, if you will.
You grow musically.
Really, yeah, you do.
You go from rhythmic to now it's an instrument.
Playing music.
You know, what's more important, landing the interview or having that connection with your instrument?
That isn't always about it, though. You see so many people, especially in rock, you hear their criteria for taking you, and the first thing is not how you played. Obviously, I mean, most of these people at a national level can play, but it's whether the band thought you were a good hang. Did they personally connect with you, and did they want to hang out with you? Because they got to be on a bus with you for 6 months.
Energy transfer and vibe.
And I mean, and then in that way you can almost kind of understand. Okay, so I got to be around this person, and I got to not want to kill them, but at the same time, it is kind of crappy because it isn't about how you're playing. And so all this work that you put into something, it may not necessarily be the first thing that someone's looking at you for, you know, or it could be how you look, especially in I'm going to call it younger music. You know, something where image is such a paramount thing. You know, and I don't know if that's gotten better or worse, but I know during the 80s and 90s, when you went out and especially Los Angeles with record companies, it was all about how you look. You know, and I don't know if that's the case anymore. Certain genres probably it may be a little bit more open, but depending upon what you're doing, you know, it's like not necessarily always about how you played. I don't think. Yeah.
Well, and again, it's one of those dynamics where you control what you can control. I mean, you don't make the decision. You know if you played well. We all know that, right? Like in that last song, there was a section that I completely blanked on, and there's a kick pattern that's programmed in there. So like, what I decided to do is just not play the kick drum because I couldn't remember it. I didn't have a chart, so I was like, oh shoot. As soon as I heard it, I was like, uh-oh. So I was like, no problem. And I was just like, I'm just not going to play the kick drum because I just blanked that one section. So I think we kind of know if we nailed it. Like if we're being honest. Also, I don't know if you talk about this, but like record yourself when you practice. You know, and yep, you know, when you and I tell particularly, so a lot of people I tell, like, record yourself, but then don't listen to that recording for a few weeks. Because, like, what I used to do is I would record myself performance. I got it from a guy named Bobby Floyd. I substituted for this guy named Reggie Jackson, who was killing. And so I recorded every single gig because Bobby Floyd always records every gig. I don't know why. I'm like, well, you're amazing. Like, but so I was like, I'm gonna do this because I want to get better. And like, I found that I would make excuses when it was too close. So say if I played the gig on Friday night and I listened to it like Monday, just listen back. I'd be like, oh, I know what happened, because I was too emotionally connected to that gig. So I say, like, record it and give yourself some time so that you could kind of like forget whatever the heck happened. You just judge it objectively. Like, oh, I just missed that particular section of the song, and you don't know if it's because somebody tapped you on the shoulder or whatever, like somebody caught your attention or whatever. Give yourself a little bit of time to forget and then just listen to you as an objective, musician, and don't, like, do that, like scrutinize yourself, but just a little bit. Like, don't go in like, I'm the scum of the universe, I missed the B section. Like, no, it's not that serious. You know what I mean? So.
Chris, you look like you got a question.
No, I'm just itching my eyebrow.
My hand is not raised. Definitely. Well, I thank you all for listening, giving me your ears and time and attention.
Hey, thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Hopefully, it was cool and you got something out of it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ong.
Yeah.
Yes. And thank you for being here, Mr. Ong. Can we give him a hand one more time? Yeah. You never know the impact you have, man. It's crazy.
Good. I'm trying,
It's your fault I'm stuck over here.
I was gonna say, you shouldn't get too happy about that.
Yeah.
As the music business is.
For sure.
It's pretty rough.
It is.
So, I was going to ask you something. Oh, my son told me a thing about Peter Erskine. I was, it must have been the Kenton band. I was auditioning for the Kenton band, and so I'm in the audition, actually, and all of a sudden someone jumps up and says, he's here, it's Peter Erskine. And that was it for me.
Yeah.
I was gone, man. It just like broke my heart.
Yeah.
I was so close.
Probably prepared and everything. You might have known the music better than him, but then sometimes that happens, right? It's like, man. Peter's here.
Music business is somewhat ugly.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It can be very fulfilling, but it's tough. I was going to ask you something else. Could you maybe tell us something about bass players, playing with a bass player? Because that's a big deal.
Okay, that is a major deal. Okay, so I'm going to tell you at least two things.
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
No. Thing number one is, playing with a bass player, in my mind, should be like a really good, enjoyable dance where no one gets their toe stepped on. A lot of fun where you all are succinct. And to your point, I feel like you can't talk to that person enough. Like, especially if you're going on a tour, like, I ask the cats, like, yo, who do you check out? Like who's the baddest cat? The top 3 drummers that you love, right? Not to necessarily play like them, but to understand perspective. Like, where is this person coming from? And that's one thing I would say. And then the other thing I would say is something that was told to me by this guy named Ron Carter, who played with Miles Davis. And he talked to me about, it's like 2019, in fact. He talked to me about the sound of the drums and how that relates to the frequency of the bass notes. and being conscious of it. And he was talking about this Four More, the record with Tony, where it's like a drum concerto or something. They talked about it before it was recorded, and the whole vibe was like, okay, if you're going to play like that, which is fine, I don't play however you want, you got to tune your drums in a way that it doesn't interfere with the bass notes or the frequency of the bass note, or it's going to come out on the recording like trash, you know. So I think those two things, like understanding that you all are in this together, and it's the best scenario when you have that mindset that we're working together, not against one another, and then two, like just really being attentive to how your drums sound. Then put a side note in there, be attentive to how your drums sound anyway. Like, even if you're new to playing drums and you don't quite know how to tune, like talk to your teacher, you know, and then try stuff out. You know, tweak your drums up too high and then take them down low. Like, understand the range of your drums and what they can handle, you know.
Do you ever consciously, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Do you ever consciously hit like a dead note, like in the head versus like an open tone, depending on how you tune or what's mic'd or whatever, to like communicate or do anything with the bass player?
Absolutely. 100%. I think, like I said, I think all sound counts, even silence. So if there is a dead note, or if there's a certain thing, you know, like one time I was playing a song, which I got my drums, and something happened. I don't know if it was the room, but I was able to get like it was there you go. Somehow I was doing a thing where I was leaning into the drum like this, right? And during the bass, and I heard that sound, and the rest of the solo, I just kept doing it. Like, I tried to do it in time, but it sounded so sweet. Like, however the drums were tuned in the room, it sounded so sweet. Like,
what's really
so.
fun is we got 2 floor toms and you do that.
Oh
You got 2
yeah.
different pitches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. So I think all of that counts, and I don't even know what a dead note is. Like, I've heard producers use that term. I think they're all alive.
Yeah, because really, like, even if you tune it to as low as possible and there's like subs on it, the bass, like, it's gonna be a pitch no matter what it is, and that could still mess with the bass player.
And even if it's not even a pitch that we can hear, because there's some frequencies that are like kind of hard to deal with, you know, like it's still a sound though.
Yeah.
I mean, every sound has a pitch, but you understand what I'm saying? Even if it's that's still a sound, and like, what can you do with that thud? It's got to be something. Even if like one really cool thing.
I want to piggyback on that. What do you think about the comparison of hitting the surface of a drum or hitting through the drum?
Hitting on the surface of the drum, hitting through the drum.
Like, where's your target?
Sure. I think it depends on the intention of the narrative. By that I mean, like, what is the music saying? I think there is some music that you want to go through, like you want the sound. It might even be a rim shot, but it's like, you know, the majority of the stick is in the head, and you want that sound to connect like that, because that's what the story is about. That's what the music is about, you know. And then there's something else where you play, like, I'm thinking of like, you know, Virgil Donati, you know who that is or whatever. Like, it's a drummer. You should check out Virgil Donati, like, who plays like a real muscular approach to playing the drums. And don't get twisted, his technique is fantastic. He can really get around the drums like Buddy Rich. But like, to hear him play the drums, or to see him play the drums and go through the drums, and to check out footage of Buddy Rich even, you know what I mean? Or Joe Jones, who, I mean, could like hit the very tip of the surface of the drum. Side note, I read an article that said back in the day they used to practice. This is some dynamic practice here. I tried it, man. I could not. Where they would hold newspaper, and they would do rows on the newspaper to see if they, without it, you're the baddest cat if it doesn't split. Which is just
That's
like,
Jojo Mayer.
oh, Jojo Mayer did that too.
He talks about that, the whole what is it? It's about playing freehand, and kind of, instead of when you're doing doubles, basically. So instead of doing throws, you're doing inverts, and how when you invert things, you can play on any surface. And it's, you know, you can play it on a snare drum, you can play it on a floor tom, you can play it on a piece of paper, you can play it on a pizza, you know, stuff like that.
They Did he play it on a pizza?
He did play it.
And
on
JoJo
pizza.
Mayer would do
That's
some
of
stuff
course.
like But yeah, so I mean, for me, it's all about like what is the music saying, and the path that I'm on, like that's more important to me than anything. Like I'm trying to learn at this point in my life. I'm literally trying to learn how to tell the story with the drums, no matter like what that story is. I am trying my best, you know. So that's what I think about the comparison. The right way is the way that the music leads you. That's the right way.
I got one more question.
Yes, sir.
Can we talk about playing? How can I phrase this? Can we talk about playing ahead of the beat and behind the beat?
Ooh.
We had that conversation. You showed me that drum. I still can't remember his name.
Yeah.
We're talking like.
So
it
yeah.
hurts to hear.
I've given a couple of names, but this is a name to check out too. Johnny Vodakovich.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who
Laying back.
I mean, he's laying
Literally
back,
lays
man.
back in place.
I mean, you know, he's like a person. If he's driving a car, you can't see his head above the door, man. You're like, who's doing that? You know, he's sitting that far back. Again, and not to be monotonous, but what is the music calling for, right? You know, if you're playing a song with, I don't know, Dr. Dre at the halftime show, like, are you going to play ahead of the beat? Probably not. You know, I think, and I just kind of want to get into this, because I think there's like, I don't know if it is all as intentional as we make it out to be. Like sometimes we get really into, you know, a technical space that I don't know how well it translates when playing music. So I think that someone like Johnny Vodakovich or Elvin Jones or any of or what's my man Bernard Purdy or whatever, like where they're placing the beat has everything to do with the language of the music that they're playing. And I mean that in a very literal sense. Like, you go to New Orleans, listen to them talk. Half the time, you might not know what they're saying. I mean, oh man, it's like they're talking. It's such a drawl to the words, and they're like, nobody's walking as fast as they walk in Manhattan. So when I hear the New York drummers play versus the New Orleans drummers play, to me, it's just a culture. It's not that you know, those guys are trying to say, I'm going to play on top. It's the reality that, like, this car holds 100 people. There are 200 people on this platform. I'm getting a seat, you know what I mean? So you play the music like, you know, it's pointed,
Urgency,
a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Or you check out, like, man, I really, if you check out any of, talk about Laying Back Buddy, Chico, like with early, like Keith Jarrett, and that's who Jack Dejan, all those guys are coming up. You listen to that music, and it's so ridiculously patient that it can, like, for an impatient person like me, it can just, it's grooving, it sounds beautiful, but I'm like, dude sounds like he's sitting on the drums, and the drums are sitting in sand. He has no shoes on. He's just living it up, you know? But that's what the music, that's what it calls for. You know, so I think less about, me personally, I think less about whether it's I'm playing ahead or behind, and more about, like, what is this language actually saying? Because I think the other way can take you into something that maybe you don't even intend, you know, because you're thoughtful about, is it here or is it here? And I also think this too, that sometimes, like, with more understanding, the more people you listen to, the further you get into, like, music, it's not necessarily in front of the beat or behind the beat. It's the width of the beat. You know? I think of it like that. It's like, okay, well, how wide is this? You know?
So, how you feel about doing a group exercise?
I'd love it.
So
got
let's
some
try
percussion?
this. This is just off the rip.
Yes.
A little challenge for you.
Let's do it.
So, what we're going to do collectively is we're going to clap a tempo. And I want you to toy with playing ahead and behind.
Ooh,
That's a good idea.
okay.
So that way, for everyone that's beginners here,
Okay.
understand what we're talking about when you're playing ahead of the beat, on the beat, or real loose. And I want you to listen to what he does to the tempo. Cool? So everybody, we're gonna clap. Here's the tempo. You ready? No.
That's okay. So wait, am I choosing where it is?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want, just start with, and then play with whichever way you want to go.
Let's see. I want to see you and raise you. Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna clap a tempo.
Yep.
And you all, can you kind of like sit on the more or less edge of your seats? You're the band, and if you all collectively want me to play a little further ahead, then lean forward collectively. And if you want me to play a little, then lean back, and I'll try to match. I'll try to match it. All right?
Cool. You ready?
Yeah. I
All
think
right.
so.
Everybody ready? Here's our tempo.
Come in the middle, Will, so they can see you. Everybody can see you.
There we go. All right. Sit up, right?
Do you have any percussion instruments?
I do.
Let's grab some percussion
Yeah.
instruments. Let's go out on the drum jam.
There's some stuff right behind your chair.
Yeah.
Oh,
When you compose, do you write it? Do you write notes or you write charts?
Both. Normally, I start with singing. And then I'll get to the piano. And then I'll
Recognize any of these.
That's perfect.
I prefer it all. I prefer if I
Shell?
live in a perfect world, I'll play
You got that?
I have
Okay.
no idea what these things
I'll
are.
play it by ear.
Get him on top.
And I would send all my music to the cat by ear.
Just tuned with it.
I got you.
Nate Morton, it's all charted.
Yeah.
He's,
Oh, I got you.
so he's got to lose, when you're doing the voice, you've got to do so many different
Sure.
types of music.
What's the thunder? What am I missing? Everybody,
If I got a thing.
I got something for you. Give me 1 second.
Give percussion stuff to a bunch of drummers and tell them not to touch
Use
it.
that.
Yeah, right. Everybody be patient.
Don't
You got
get
stick? You need sticks for that, or you got one? Okay, you got some? Okay. Cool.
one more.
So I'm gonna start something here, and then maybe we'll just build. One way or the other. Yo, you need some-
That's not what
I think I've got some. Do you have something? Maybe I'll start this way because that's a good follow. So let's I don't know. We'll go up the clave here. Thank you for having me, for real.
Really good.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Have a beautiful weekend. Yeah, and a good evening.
Wondering, could we get a big group photo?
Would love it. Yes.